Hi, I'm Beth, and I'll be reading you today's e-edition of the Bourne Enterprise dated Friday, April 18th. Here is your first front page headline: Senator Fernandez hosts public forum on bridges. At the first of a series of public forums hosted by State Senator Dylan Fernandez, a Democrat from Plymouth in Barnstable District this week, residents asked questions, offered suggestions, and shared their criticism on the Massachusetts Department of Transportation plans to construct new bridges in Sagamore and Bourne. Before the opening of the forum in Admirals Hall at Mass Maritime Academy, the 400-seat lecture hall was more than half full. No one in the audience opposed replacing the existing 90-year-old bridges. Senator Fernandez said he has had to white-knuckle it over the bridge before. His comment was met with audible recognition of similar experiences from the audience. Senator Fernandez said the bridges were the best of their kind when they were built 90 years ago. Louisa Paywansky, executive director of MassDOT's Mega Projects Delivery Office, presented a brief report on progress, environmental permitting, fieldwork, property acquisitions, and the next step for the bridges project. Ms. Paywansky presented a proposed design for the new Sagamore Bridge, which boasts 6 12-foot wide lanes, 3 that head on Cape and 3 that head off, 2 shoulders for breakdowns, and a 14-feet wide mixed-use bicycle pedestrian path. It will keep people safe with fencing while allowing them to enjoy the view, she said. Ms. Paywansky pointed out that the twin network arch design for the new bridge is a modernized version of the iconic arch of the existing bridges. Residents had suggestions for alternative plans, including filling in the canal and/or constructing a tunnel rather than bridges. Some homeowners in the Round Hill neighborhood will be losing their homes due to eminent domain, and many came to the forum to express their anger. Mark and Joan Hendel were among 11 other homeowners in that area who were told their homes will be seized via eminent domain in roughly 2.5 years. "I want you to see some of the faces of the lives you're tearing apart," Mr. Hendel said to a row of MassDOT directors on the stage. Mr. Hendel said the area where his home is now would be used for staging and construction machinery and would eventually become green space. Ms. Paywansky said the land will have a permanent use. Cranes and construction machinery will be on the site first, then retaining walls and platforms will be constructed, and when the work is completed, the site will be used for drainage and stormwater management. Mr. Hendel asked if federal funding for the project is guaranteed under the current administration, as funding in departments across the government are reconfigured. Most of the discussion centered around the Sagamore Bridge, which will be the first to be replaced. Funding, the estimated $2.1 billion price tag for the bridge, has already been secured by federal grants. In July, Massachusetts was announced as the recipient of a $993 million federal grant for the bridge's replacement program. David Collins of Eleanor Avenue asked the panel why tunnels were not being considered to replace the bridges. Mr. Collins wondered if tunnels could be less expensive than constructing new bridges. David Anderson of HNTB Corporation said tunnels were considered, but the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' major rehab evaluation report indicated tunnels were not the best option. Mr. Anderson said the report showed tunnels would be more disruptive to the environment, and costs associated with drainage, gas lines, electricity, and ventilation ruled out tunnels. And tunnels are unsafe for pedestrians, Mr. Anderson added. About a dozen citizens shared their thoughts on the inevitable project. Senator Fernandez reminded the audience that this session was the first of many opportunities for residents to ask questions and share their thoughts on the project. Ms. Paywansky said a conservative estimate for construction of the new Sagamore Bridge is 8 to 10 years, and that construction will begin when preliminary work is done. From 2026 to 2028, MassDOT will continue environmental studies, attain state and federal permits, complete designs, and hire construction and design contractors. Construction of the new Sagamore Bridge could possibly be completed in 2038, she said. Second front page headline: Pocasset family runs Boston Marathon in memory of son. It is the call that no parent wants to get about their child. It came to Pocasset resident David J. McPherson in late October 2023. His son, Peter McPherson, had died at the age of 26, a victim of suicide after fighting depression for a number of years. Born at Toby Hospital in Wareham, Peter grew up in Bourne, where he attended elementary and middle school. He graduated from Sturgis Charter Public School in Hyannis in 2015, where he was a 4-year member of the Sturgis East Cross Country team and also participated in baseball, lacrosse, track, and theater. In 2018, Peter graduated from Cape Cod Community College, where he served as a reporter for the Main Sheet student newspaper. He then moved to Boone, North Carolina to attend Appalachian State University and pursue a culinary career. Peter's passions included music, art, books, nature, cycling, the Celtics, and Liverpool Football Club. Most of all, Mr. McPherson said of his son, he will be remembered for his kindness and empathy. One thing really that made his death just a little bit easier, we heard his friends talk of his kindness, he said. A year and a half after Peter's death, Mr. McPherson and his daughter, Erin, 29, have embarked on a journey to turn tragedy into triumph and honor their son and brother's memory. The two decided to run this year's Boston Marathon on Monday as part of the team for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention to raise funds for the organization. The AFSP is a national organization, Mr. McPherson said, that provides funding for research, education, and support services for families who have lost someone to suicide. At their online fundraising page, the McPherson said they decided to run as part of the AFSP team to give back to an organization that has made a meaningful impact on our lives over the last year. Mr. McPherson said that he used to consider it a cliché when people would say they wanted to keep alive the memory of a family member who had died. When Peter died, he said, his greatest fear was that people would forget him, and he did not want that to happen. I want to do something to honor Peter and to raise money for a good cause, he said. That was my pure motivation. Honestly, my selfish reason for doing it is to keep his memory alive. Miss McPherson explained that shortly after the death of her brother, her family was connected to the AFSP website, which provided info on support groups in their area. She said they found support groups at the website and other resources the organization provides. Joining the AFSP team for the marathon, she said, was a natural choice. When I found out they have a team, I was like, well, it's got to be this one, she said. Miss McPherson said that at the dawn of 2025, she started to feel a strong pull to do something to keep her brother's memory alive. She said that desire to keep Peter's memory alive often provided the impetus and spark for her training runs. Boston will be Miss McPherson's first ever marathon. Despite that, she said, she's no stranger to running, having participated in numerous shorter races, including the annual Falmouth Road race since the age of 15. She's also signed up to run the Chicago Marathon in October as part of the AFSP team, she said. Too early to say whether she will attempt the Boston Marathon again next year. Mr. McPherson, however, has run the marathon 5 times already and participated in a total of 14 marathons. Unfortunately, as the adage goes, the best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry. A last-minute heart operation has sidelined him from Monday's event. A pre-race check of his condition revealed severely blocked arteries that led to him undergoing an operation on April 7th to have 3 stents inserted. I kind of knew there was an issue, but what I wasn't expecting was that I had these major blockages that were pretty dangerous, he said, noting that 2 weeks before the marathon was not enough time to recover from the surgery. Despite the sudden withdrawal from the starting line, both Mr. McPherson and his daughter continue to fundraise as part of the AFSP team. Team members are required to collect at least $12,000, or in their case, a combined $24,000. As of Wednesday, the father-daughter tandem had raised $29,116. While the Boston Marathon takes place on Monday, fundraising for the AFSP continues through the first week of May. Anyone interested in donating can visit the McPherson's webpage at running26forpeter.com. And anyone in need of help with the suicide issue can reach out to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention at afsp.org. and for the Samaritans on Cape Cod and the islands at capesamaritans.org. And speaking of Monday, Patriots Day, the town of Bourne will observe a holiday schedule in honor and observance of Patriots Day. The town's non-emergency offices and services will be closed on Monday. All will reopen on Tuesday. The Bourne curbside rubbish recycling collection schedule will be altered for the week. All pickups will be shifted ahead by one day. The Department of Public Works will have additional crews performing curbside collection, and in some areas might be earlier than usual. Residents are asked to make sure to have barrels out by 7 a.m. Regular scheduled pickup for curbside collection will resume the week of April 28th. And this story, the town's ongoing frustration with Comcast have led the Bourne Select Board to request a meeting with the Mass Broadband Institute and the company. The Bourne Cable, Internet, and Telecommunications Advisory Committee drafted a letter to MBI, which the Select Board edited and sent on Wednesday. We've had a lot of problems trying to communicate with Comcast regarding exactly what they're planning, what they're doing, and how they're complying with the original letter of support that you sent on December 5th, 2023, Chairman Robert Dwyer said at the Select Board meeting on Tuesday. The 2023 letter of support specified network upgrades that Comcast must conduct, including a town-wide implementation of 1.8 gigahertz spectrum expansion, a standard that allows high-speed internet access over cable television networks to reach 10 gigabit speeds and splitting nodes to fewer than 500 homes passed. These improvements aim to increase internet speed, capacity, and reliability in Bourne. According to Mr. Dwyer, the original letter of support led to Comcast receiving $24,000 under the GAP 2 grant. The most recent letter to the Mass Broadband Institute outlines the board's 3 goals for the proposed meeting: obtaining an explanation of why Comcast's GAP plans don't fully specify the town-wide upgrades that were condition of the board support, understanding why 12 of the 16 initial locations identified as unserved or underserved were later declared ineligible in Comcast's GAP 2 grant application, and clarifying the addition of 17,000 locations, including broadband equity, access, and deployment challenge areas, to GAP funding and the level of service these locations will receive. The Select Board agreed that should MBI and Comcast agree to meet, the meeting will include 2 Select Board members, 2 SciTAC members, Town Administrator Marlene McCullum, and a representative from MBI and Comcast. And here's something you might be interested in. The Mass Clean Energy Center launched the Massachusetts statewide Electric Bike Incentive Program in April, which is Earth Month. Now, this program offers income-based vouchers up to $1,200 to help residents purchase electric bikes. This new program builds on the success of Mass Bike's Worcester e-bike program, one of the pilot projects that demonstrated how e-bikes can transform everyday mobility. The program will award about 3,000 vouchers total, selected monthly from April through September. 2 vouchers are offered through this program. The enhanced voucher offers up to $1,200 for applicants with incomes below 225% of the federal poverty line or participants in qualifying programs. The second voucher is the standard voucher, which offers up to $800 for applicants with incomes at or below 400% of the federal poverty line or participants in qualifying programs. In addition to these e-bike vouchers, participants will receive up to $150 for safety gear and a bike pump. For more information or to apply, visit ma-ebikes.masscec.com. Let me repeat that. ma-ebikes.masscec.com. In other news, Kea Phillips of Sandwich, a senior at Upper Cape Cod Regional Technical School, was honored on April 10th as a 2025 MAVA Outstanding Vocational Technical Student of the Year. The award, presented at a statewide dinner held at Mechanics Hall in Worcester, recognizes students whose scholastic and vocational achievements have significantly contributed to their local school district and to the overall delivery of vocational technical education in Massachusetts. Kea is an environmental science and technology student with a passion for marine conservation and climate science. As an alternate member of the NOAA Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council, she contributes to the protection of vital marine ecosystems. Her hands-on experience includes volunteering as a naturalist for Hyannis whale watcher cruises and educating the public through the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy. Kea serves as a climate ambassador for the Cape Cod Commission, collaborating with wind technology and climate science experts to promote sustainability. Beyond her environmental work, Kea is vice president of the SADD Club and a member of the National Honor Society. With a deep commitment to ocean conservation and climate action, Kea plans to study environmental science at Bates College in Maine upon graduation. And a reminder that Mashpee Commons will host a full day of Easter fun for families and four-legged friends on Saturday, April 19th. The community is invited to take part in the annual Easter egg hunt at participating shops throughout the Commons from 11 to 3 on the 19th. The Easter Bunny will hop into Central Square during the hunt, where youngsters can swing by for photos, face painting, and other free activities. Furry friends are also invited to take part in what has become the Cape's biggest canine egg hunt. The fun starts on the Village Green at 11 a.m. sharp. Hosted by Hot Diggity, the hunt will include 4,000 plastic eggs filled with tasty treats for pups, along with dog toys and tennis balls. Humans are asked to kindly have their dogs leashed and bring a basket for collecting eggs and some cleanup bags. The event will take place rain or shine. And Sheriff Donna Buckley is changing Barnstable County's approach to public safety. On April 11th, she unveiled her new initiative, Public Safety 2.0. She also held a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Bridge Center, which she called a response to the overwhelming challenges of reintegration. The Bridge Center, which is located at the Barnstable Court Complex in Barnstable Village, will provide a wide range of services for formerly incarcerated individuals. These include clinical care, job training, housing navigation, education pathways, parenting support, arts and culture exposure, and addiction services. Sheriff Buckley said that public safety is not just about who gets locked up, it is also about what happens when offenders are released. For too long, jails have been treated like pause buttons, as if some time behind bars alone could solve all of the problems that brought someone there. But we know better. Safety isn't built in a cell, it starts in the community, and it starts the moment someone enters our custody. Public Safety 2.0 is about accountability with understanding and corrections with purpose. It's not just about the individual in our custody, it's about how we create support systems that make our community safer. It's a shift in how we think, how we plan, and how we act, not only when someone is in our custody, but when they walk back into your neighborhood. She also considered it a public safety mission. We're giving people the tools they need to succeed, not only so they can thrive on the outside, but so we can feel safe in our homes, our workplaces, and our towns, she said. We are not lowering the bars, we are raising them. Public Safety 2.0 doesn't mean we let people off the hook. It means we put people on a real path forward. Public Safety 1.0 said lock them up and hope they figure it out. Public Safety 2.0 is a commitment to unlocking human potential. She said the overarching measure of success will be preventing recidivism, although the department will continue to track the statistical data. She described the new initiative as a more human form of measurement. My view of public safety is that I don't always have the ability, especially in the work that the sheriff does, to prevent a first crime, but I'm going to make sure that I do what I can to make sure there's not another victim. And from the opinion page today, this editorial titled The Power of Community. Despite the rainy April weather, families were out in droves last Sunday to participate in the third annual town-wide Character Easter Egg Hunt, which was once again an amazing showing of the things this community can do when its members come together. There were somehow even more delightful hand-painted wooden characters than there were last year, up to 108 from last year's 72, featuring cartoon favorites from Donald Duck to Paw Patrol and seemingly everyone in between. The stakes were higher too, and by high stakes we of course mean the number of treasures to be scavenged, with the number of goodies, mostly small toys and candies, clocking in at a whopping 30,000. Shelby Lynn Palmer, a resident raising her family in Buzzards Bay, kick-started the now annual tradition a few years ago, and it grows bigger each year thanks to the community support. The characters are hand-painted by Ms. Palmer, and the artistry itself is downright astounding. We've seen several of the characters over the last few weeks driving around town, and they're just a joy to see. We routinely pass by the Cheshire Cat, and seeing his sly grin on our way down Sandwich Road never fails to brighten our day. Each year, Miss Palmer helps this large-scale, town-wide event come together through the power of community. She has crowdsourced a lot of the items and the help stuffing the eggs from her fellow Bourne residents. This year, several local businesses stepped up too to help support the event, host a character, and hand out some eggs on the day of the hunt. There was a line out the door at O'Place's Collaborative Art Studio and Music Lounge right on Main Street in Buzzards Bay. Inside, it was a kid's paradise where they could get pictures with the Easter Bunny, indulge in yummy treats, and get balloon animals. All of this fun and these memories came about from an idea that Miss Palmer had a few years ago. It grew and grew into this wonderful thing thanks to the support of the community, of our neighbors, of strangers. And at a time when there is so much strife in the world, we think that this is a pretty beautiful thing. If you missed out on the fun last Sunday, don't fret. Miss Palmer told us there are plans in the works to reopen the egg hunt for an extra day due to the inclement weather last weekend. Updates regarding the exact date will be posted on Miss Palmer's Facebook page, but it will be sometime during school vacation next week. There are plenty of eggs still out there in Bourne. Go get them. And here is a column written by Robert Zabel titled Reflections, headlined From There to Here. Have you ever woken up and had one of those moments when you looked around your house and wondered, how did I ever get here? I don't mean just the physical surroundings of the immediate moment, although there is that too, but that psychological place in your life to which your personal journey has taken you. At that moment, I had the sensation of being a kid again, on the cusp of adolescence, and existing simultaneously in 2 points of time. As if part of me could step into the Wayback Machine and be in that 3-decker apartment in Dorchester as well as this home in Bourne. How had I traveled that short distance of only about 70 miles in 70 years? Though I had worked hard and been lucky in love, I still thought, in what universe had I ever believed I would end up here, physically and metaphysically, or that I deserved the life I had? I even considered, what kind of question is that? Of course I deserved it. I earned it, didn't I? Certainly I earned some of it. Hard work did pay off. Yet there were points in the road where sheer luck played a part, being in the right place at the right time and having the nerve to take that opportunity that chance provided. Yet I did nothing to earn all the medical challenges I've encountered along the way. Got that by just being alive and possibly having some gene mutations. I would say that medically I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The luck there is that these were treatable and, as with some joints, replaceable. I was unfortunate to get these maladies, but also fortunate that they weren't fatal. My mother used to say, when you have bad luck, you need to have good luck too. I would add, and the good luck has to come at the end. Sometimes I got what I deserved. I do not get away with stupid at this age. And at other times I did not deserve what I got. It seems like a moral question, as if there is some standard by which to judge whether I ought to have what I have earned. Maybe that benchmark is internal, an ethical, moral gyroscope by which I judge my place in the universe. I ask, how did that 12-year-old undersized runt get to be an 82-year-old, still undersized senior, with a family, a career, and a home? I know this can sound self-congratulatory, but that is not my intent. There is a small glass tile that my wife bought. It sits on my coffee table that sums up this question. It says, inside every older person is a younger person wondering what the hell happened. That is, how did I get from there to here? At times it does seem that the journey was long with joys and sorrows along the route. At other times it is passed in a flash, a New York minute, as they say. Perhaps this self-examination not coincidentally in a column titled Reflections, is a result of several recent life events. My wife's fall and subsequent surgery, my own near-serious encounter with a device that holds weights at a gym, and a just completed regular appointment at Dana-Farber, where they have been working to keep me healthy and alive for almost 30 years. Perhaps it's no wonder that I've been reflecting about my life. As a person with a science background, I know that every research endeavor must account for what is called random error. It is like the noise in any system that makes it hard to have confidence in what the signal is. That is, can the scientists have confidence in the research findings, and can these be replicated by others? This random error in the universe includes unplanned, unexpected events like illnesses, accidents, mistakes, as well as my inexplicably human capacity for stupid, as in my near-serious encounter with gym equipment. To be sure, there are positive kinds of errors that occur. Sudden experiences of pure joy, like that amazing sunset I wrote about last fall. But it tends to be the ones that bring pain and suffering that stay with me. All that error, good and bad, makes it hard to see through line of my life. When these random errors occur, all I can do is figure out how to respond, face them with more or less dignity, and move through them. Many events that bring suffering or sorrow I don't get over. I just learn to live with them as best I can. Maybe I deserved them because I used bad judgment. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it was just the random error of life. It doesn't matter. Each one was a crisis to be faced at the time, but now they're just one of the many way stations on the road from there to here. Again, that was written by Robert Zabel, who's a mostly retired psychologist and who lives in Bourne. He writes essays about personal experiences and the natural world. And here's a guest commentary written by David Howell titled Astronauts or Tourists? As a career-long teacher of astronomy and space science, this week's successful Blue Origin flight to send a group of 5 female astronauts into space makes me feel somewhat curmudgeonly. The term space is not really easy to define, as there is no line below which there is atmosphere and above which is a perfect vacuum. The density of the atmosphere simply diminishes steadily with height. Even the International Space Station, orbiting 250 miles above the Earth's surface, occasionally has to be boosted into a higher orbit because there is still enough atmosphere to cause it to slow down over time and fall back to Earth without that boost. Scientists have debated for a long time about what altitude should space be defined to start. One such definition is called the Kármán line. The particulars that motivated that definition need not be considered here, but the Kármán line has been defined to be at 52 miles above the Earth's surface. Any vehicle claiming to deliver humans into space must climb above that level, and the Blue Origin vehicle does that, just barely. After her Blue Origin flight, Gayle King declined the opportunity to be called astronaut. As a professional journalist with a long and distinguished career, perhaps she has met many others who were called astronauts and recognized that each of them had been handpicked from enormous pools of highly capable individuals and had then spent years in training before even being considered for an actual flight into space. As a professional journalist, perhaps she knew that several years ago, when Blue Origin and other companies were getting into the space tourism business, the FAA, recognizing that the designation astronaut should actually mean something, stated that these individuals must have demonstrated activities during the mission that were essential to public safety or contributed to human space flight safety. Gayle and her fellow tourists did none of that. Perhaps being of a certain age, Miss King knew that many years ago, pilots' wings were awarded to youngsters flying on a commercial flight for the first time, obediently strapping themselves in and gazing out the window at sights they had never imagined previously. For all intents and purposes, Blue Origin is essentially an amusement park ride on steroids, available only to those who are either very rich or very famous. Each of us is free to form our own opinions about the significance of the recent Blue Origin flight or others like it, but Let's not forget that these flights were made possible through the efforts of tens of thousands of individuals devoting entire careers to getting other folks into space, while fully recognizing that they would never be given that opportunity for themselves. And again, that was written by David Howell, who for more than 40 years taught astronomy, meteorology, and physics at Deerfield Academy in Western Mass and served as the director of its Andrews and Tenoto planetariums. So we've reached the halfway point of our broadcast, and I'll read today's obituaries. Raymond G. Andrews of Pocasset died on April 11th after a battle with cancer. He was 74. Born in Wareham, he grew up in Falmouth. Settling in Wareham with his wife, Kathleen Andrews, he worked for Pro Paving and Excavating, as well as owning A&B Appliance with his brother-in-law, Harry Bassey, where he repaired and sold used appliances. Eventually, he moved to Pocasset 16 years ago. Known for being a jack of all trades, he enjoyed helping friends and family members with repairs, remodels, and construction. He loved sports, especially the Patriots. He also enjoyed watching old Western movies and car shows. He was an active member of the Cape Cod Church in Falmouth and was awarded the Paul Harris Award by the Barnstable Sunrise Rotary Club. In addition to his wife of nearly 50 years, he leaves his children, David Andrews and his wife Angel of Florida, Renee Mercado and her husband Ramon of Minnesota, Raymond Andrews Jr. of Minnesota, and Nataro Andrews Gray of Pocasset. Siblings Morris Andrews, Nelson Andrews, Stephen Andrews, Geraldine Hicks, Vivian Sharp, and Wendy Andrews, 18 grandchildren, and several great-grandchildren and other extended family members. In addition to his parents, he was predeceased by siblings Ralph Andrews, Lawrence Andrews, James, Donald, Benjamin, Dennis, Lorraine Jones, Elizabeth Roca, Carolyn Broderick, Gertrude Broderick, Theodore Barrows, Sandra Andrews, and Linda Bassey, and his son Albert Royster. Visiting hours will be held from 5 to 8 p.m. on Thursday, April 24th at Chapman Funerals and Cremations in Mashpee. A funeral service will be held at 11 a.m. on Friday, April 25th at the Cape Cod Church in East Falmouth. And the following residents, former residents, or family of residents of Falmouth, Mashpee, and Sandwich recently died. Visit capenews.net to read the complete obituary news stories. Mary Sue Bachnecht, 85, of East Falmouth, died on April 14th. William J. DeCroce, 62, of Falmouth, April 13th. Ronald F. Goulart, 65, of East Falmouth, April 9th. Thomas Joseph Griffin, 59, of Sandwich, died on April 6th. Janet Penny LeBlanc, 85, of Punta Gorda, Florida, April 1st. Stephen Oberlander, 61, of Hyannis, March 7th. Gerald Potamus, 78, of Falmouth, April 11th. David Calman Rubin, 90, of Falmouth, April 13th. Francis Salvatelli, 91, of North Falmouth, died on April 13th. Edward Thompson, 89, of East Falmouth, April 5th. James Tuig, Jr., 72, of Dorchester, April 14th. And Alice Catherine Rondthaler Woodwell, 95, of Woods Hole, died on April 11th. Back to news, and the following is from the Bourne Police Reports dated Wednesday, April 9th through Sunday the 13th. On Wednesday, April 9th, police conducted a motor vehicle stop for a red 2017 Ford F-150 on Bourne Bridge approach at 1:30 p.m. Officers discovered that the driver had a warrant out for his arrest. Scott Raymond, 43, of Middleborough, was arrested for assault and battery of a pregnant person. On Saturday, April 12th, a caller reported an SUV operating erratically and unable to maintain lanes on Nightingale Pond Road at 12:40 a.m. Officers located the vehicle, a gray 2022 Acura MDX, and performed standardized field sobriety tests on the driver. The car was towed, and Miroslav Jakubika, 51, of Sandwich, was arrested for operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor and leaving the scene of property damage. On Sunday, April 13th, police responded to a report of a male party who appeared to be passed out in a gray 2024 Toyota Corolla. Officers requested rescue, but the subject refused services. Jonathan August Fisher, 35, of Malden, was arrested for possessing Class A and Class B drugs. And that's it for the police reports this week. Short. The Friends of the Bourne Council on Aging's biannual Psychic Fair and Craft Show will return. It's going to be held at the Bourne Veterans Memorial Community Center on next Saturday, April 26th. Community members interested in getting a psychic reading, gift shopping, or treating themselves are invited to join the Friends of Bourne Council on Aging for a day in support of the Friends Food Pantry. The fair will take place from 10 to 4 at the Community Center on Main Street in Buzzards Bay. Admission is $2. Attendees will have a number of psychic readings to choose from. The event will also have local crafters with goods for sale. All proceeds will go to the Friends of Bourne Council on Aging to benefit the Bourne Friends Food Pantry and provide assistance to those in need throughout the Bourne community. And here's your recycling tip of the week. With the colder season coming to an end and warm weather clothing being brought back out, please remember textiles do not belong in recycling carts. This includes clothing, linens, footwear, hats, and accessories. Most textile collectors will accept items for donation in any condition as long as items are clean, dry, and odorless. This includes items with stains, rips, missing buttons, or broken zippers. The only unacceptable items are wet or moldy items or items exposed to hazardous materials. For more information, use Recycle Smart MA's Beyond the Bin search tool. You can find that at recyclesmartma.org. And last week, a marijuana dispensary in Sandwich made a change overnight, working to expedite customer transactions and cultivate a positive experience for both patients and customers. In Good Health, located on Route 130, services a wide array of both medical patients and recreational customers, said President David Noble. The dispensary first opened in 2021, operating solely as a medical dispensary. After the dispensary opened its doors to recreational customers in 23, the store's layout became problematic. Soon, customers complained of long lines, and medical patients suffered the most. Tammy Gilfeather, assistant manager of the dispensary, said that typically medical patients tend to take their time exploring the menu, asking questions, and due to their condition may be unable to wait in a long line. As the store grew more crowded when both medical and rec users flowed in and out, it became clear to the dispensary that the separation was necessary. The dispensary services many medical patients who suffer from chronic pain or illnesses such as cancer and see the products as a form of true relief, said Mr. Noble. Mr. Noble opted to utilize unused office space behind the existing location to create a separate medical office. Overnight on April 8th, the existing location was transformed into a recreational facility. A new sign has been installed in the parking lot to designate two separate entrances and parking areas. So far, Mr. Noble reports that the medical office has been quieter and more private since the two facilities have been separated. Now that we have the two separated offices, it's so much simpler, Ms. Gilfeather said. People like it and they're happy. We are getting the vibe back at the medical office, she said, noting that before the recreational license was added, the medical-only dispensary had a quiet and chill vibe. With the switch, that same vibe has begun to return. Overall, the chill vibe of the dispensary is something that continues to entice both employees and customers. It's nice working here, Miss Gilfeather said. I like that it's family-owned, too. Customers, on the other hand, may be more inclined to enjoy the prices that the dispensary offers for its products. Due to the dispensary's vertically integrated and strategic stores, Mr. Noble said that we are able to offer a vast menu and great pricing, and that's why people like shopping with us. In March, In Good Health was granted the Sandwich Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Award, which highlights performance, innovation, and community impact. Due to the dispensary's 37,000 square foot warehouse in Brockton, the dispensary is able to produce all of its products in-house. This strategy helped the business win the Business Excellence Award earlier this year. Across the hall from what is now the recreational-only side of In Good Health, since an empty retail space, soon it will be transformed into what Mr. Noble called Munchie Mart. Anything from a quick snack to a bottle of sunscreen or other items needed for a quick trip to the beach will be sold at the new convenience store. In addition to the Munchie Mart, Mr. Noble and In Good Health have other plans for expansion in the future. Earlier this year, Mr. Noble finalized plans to take over a medical and recreational dispensary in Taunton. Each dispensary owner has the option to be granted 3 licenses for dispensaries. Mr. Noble said, "I'll be done after this one." In Good Health in Sandwich is located at 449 Route 130. And the Falmouth Public Library has lost an expected $7,500 in federal dollars that had been earmarked for improving its archives. On April 2nd, the library system was informed that its Library Services and Technology Act grant was terminated. Director Brian Stokes said the library applied for the grant in January and had a contract signed by the grantor, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, on March 26th. The grant funding was planned for the hiring of a preservation professional who would tend to the library's archives. Right now, the archive room in the library is not as well maintained as it could be, Mr. Stokes said. That room is used for the preservation of old materials and documents, including decades-old minutes from past Library Board of Trustees meetings. On March 14th, President Trump issued an executive order gutting the Institute of Museum and Library Services, a federal agency that delivers grants via state library systems. That order, which put all 75 employees of the agency on temporary leave, put into question the more than $160 million in annual grants dispersed to local libraries and museums. Out of the question, however, are the funds the library was promised contractually. That grant was canceled, not paused. Mr. Stokes continued to say the library system does not use other federal funding. Other projects coming down the pike are safe from federal cuts, he believes. For example, the forthcoming new building for the East Falmouth Library branch is state-funded, meaning the library system is not expecting any issues going forward. This is a great state to be in tough times for libraries. And here is this week's weekly Nature Watch column written by Mary Richmond titled Of Herring and Herons. It isn't a big secret that spring is slow to arrive here on Cape Cod. Just this past weekend we had sleet and temperatures that kept our gardens in the frost zone. In spite of that, some signs of spring continue to arrive on schedule no matter what the weather is doing. Nature is a master of synchronicity. The birds that feed on worms arrive just as the earth is defrosting and the worms move up to the surface. Birds that thrive on flying insects show up right around the time all those little flying insects hatch and appear over fields, marshes, and ponds. Fish come out of hiding, crabs come closer to shore, whales frolic in the bay between feeding frenzies, and the spring ephemerals, those sweet flowers of early spring that dot the forest floor before all the trees leaf out, show up in time to feed the early pollinators, such as bees and flies. Unless you've been asleep or are simply oblivious, you are aware that the small fish known as herring and alewives make an annual trek from salt water to fresh at this time of year, often arriving by the thousands on each incoming tide. There are numerous herring runs up and down the coast, but we have some well-known and very active ones here on the Cape, whether you're in Bourne, Mashpee, Falmouth, Barnstable, Dennis, Harwich, or Brewster, just to name some of the better-known ones. These runs bring the fish from the saltwater and brackish estuaries into the freshwater rivers and then into ponds where they mate and lay millions of eggs. This trip is not without many perils. Huge numbers of fish don't make the trip successfully. Some die of exhaustion, some get lost, and thousands lose their lives to the many predators waiting for their arrival. Ospreys and other fish-eating birds arrive from their long migrations just as the herring scouts are beginning to mosey up the runs. These scouts do not have the safety in numbers that later arrivals will have, but they are also early enough in many cases to avoid being found by predators. Gulls, cormorants, and several kinds of herons and egrets happily await the masses of fish that will soon arrive. Most of the herring will come in on a big incoming tide, and that migration has now begun in earnest. Watch for bird activity in the areas you may want to visit and time your visit accordingly. For those unfamiliar with how herring gulls got their names, a visit to a nearby run will soon reveal the answer. Watching herring gulls grab and swallow whole herrings is an amazing sight. Sometimes they're so full that half a fish will be flopping about as the greedy gull tries unsuccessfully to stuff it into his already overfilled gullet. Although many are familiar with great blue herons, we have several other herons here, including 2 species of egrets. The green heron is probably more common than the great blue, but its diminutive size confuses many. The black-crowned night heron is also fairly common if you know where to look. They tend to be a bit more secretive, and you may have better luck finding them at dawn or dusk than at noon. To be fair, I've seen plenty at noon when the herring are running. Both great and snowy egrets will show up whenever there are a lot of fish to be found, and on occasion we'll get some herons that are rarer for our area, such as a little blue heron or a tricolored heron. Birds aren't the only beneficiaries of the arrival of the herring. Otters will take their fill, and coyotes have been known to keep watch at a run, grabbing fish that overshoot their destination or get tossed on the ground by gulls. Underwater, snapping turtles and larger fish may lay in wait for the tired fish to arrive, and some smaller fish gobble up the eggs even as they are being laid. The arrival of the alewives and herring was a very welcome time back in the days before refrigeration and large grocery chains that ship food around the world. Winters were long and bleak, and so many fresh fish showing up after months of skimpy diets was seen as a blessing. So many fish were crammed into the passageways that people could catch them by hand or by nets. When I was a child, I had neighbors who caught bucket loads of herring to bring home. Some were eaten that day, cooked and shared with neighbors and friends, but many were dried or pickled as well, put in storage for the next long winter. Our herring fisheries have been drastically reduced in modern times, most likely due to offshore draggers, often from other countries. And today, fishing at the historic runs is disallowed unless you are a Native American. Once the eggs have been laid, the herring that survived the arduous ordeal will return to the sea. Many will die on the way back, but not all. Then in summer, the herring fry will have gotten to be the length of a small finger, and they will begin to head to the sea. It is at this time that the herons and egrets will bring their newly fledged young to the streams and creeks to fish to their heart's content. If you've never witnessed a herring run in action, perhaps try to do so this year. It's an experience you won't soon forget, and a reminder that nature is a master of synchronicity and survival. Ask around to find the one closest to you and check it out. It may take more than one stop to watch the action, but it'll be worth it. And watch for the birds. They'll let you know. Again, that was written by Mary Richmond, who's an artist, writer, naturalist, and educator who grew up on the Cape and lives in Hyannis. Briefly, in some sports news, the Bourne High School baseball team enjoyed a few days off before getting back on the diamond, but the rest did not help get the team's offensive struggles sorted. The Canalmen hosted Apponequet High School at Cody Field on Wednesday and could not get anything going with the Sticks as they dropped a 12-0 game to the Lakers. And after losing a pair of tight ones in a row, the Bourne High School girls lacrosse team was unable to keep up with Dighton Rehoboth on Wednesday. The Lady Canalmen hung for a while, but Dighton Rehoboth pulled away to win a 17-7 game on their home field. The Lady Canalmen dropped to 0-7 overall. And it was a rough day at the Diamond for the Bourne High School softball team on Monday. The Lady Canalmen were roughed up by visiting Somerset Berkeley on a day when nothing went well for BHS. They lost 18-0. And after losing their first three, the Bourne High School boys lacrosse team has seemingly found a groove. The Canalmen not only won their second game in a row on Wednesday afternoon, but won their second straight blowout victory. This time they took down Dighton Rehoboth in a rout 19-6. The team is now 2-3 overall for the year. And here's this week's Gourmets and Good Eaters column written by Gail Blakely titled Sunny Days and Asparagus. Finally, it's time to acknowledge spring. Sunny days make it a lot easier, and the appearance of asparagus, white, green, and purple, in our markets is indeed something to celebrate. Nowadays, the spears are a little different than those that originated in ancient Rome. Some of those stalks could weigh upwards of 1/3 of a pound. The name comes from a Persian word used by the ancient Greeks and Romans, asparag, meaning shoot. The term spurge was used for a very long time, although peasants would often call it sparrow grass. The colors vary, and farmers can harvest both white and green asparagus from the same plant. The white variety is much more labor-intensive as it is grown underground. When the spears emerge from the ground, sunlight turns them green. Purple asparagus is a product of conventional plant breeding, not GMO, and it has a higher sugar content than the others. However, it's only purple in its raw state. It can turn green when it's cooked. This is a vegetable for the patient farmer. When planted, it takes 3 years before it can be harvested for the full season. First comes the seed, then comes the plant. Farmers can only harvest for a short time during its first few years. This allows for further growth. When the plant is mature, it can be harvested for the full season, which is typically about 90 days. Did you know that asparagus will sometimes grow by 6 to 7 inches in one day, and that a plant will generally produce for 8 to 12 years? It's pretty obvious how the green and white varieties came to be. Purple asparagus originated in Italy. It contains high levels of anthocyanin, which is the same antioxidant that gives blueberries, eggplants, and blood oranges their unique coloring. The spears are deep purple, but the ferns are green. Because it is much sweeter and more tender than green asparagus, it is best used in salads. It will retain its color if it's sautéed quickly, but any prolonged cooking brings it back to green. Most of the crop for this country comes from California, but Washington and Michigan are in close second. Other countries that are major growers of asparagus are China and Peru. As mentioned earlier, patience does pay off. Once the ground thaws in early springtime, the massive underground root system produces new spears at a rate of up to 6 inches a day. Farmers do have to be careful when harvesting, however. Cutting too much off in a single day or throughout a season can harm the plant for the rest of its life. In this state, organic farm partners in the Pioneer Valley concentrated their efforts on asparagus production. Asparagus from Hadley, Massachusetts was thought to be the finest in America due to the deep layer of sandy loam in the fertile soil. But in the mid-1970s, a soil-borne fungus spread rapidly through the valley, killing most of the asparagus plants. Thus, there are no longer any commercial organic asparagus farms in central Mass. Even though we grow thousands of metric tons each year, China remains the largest producer in the world. Most asparagus in your supermarkets currently comes from Mexico or Peru, not from the almost 5 million metric tons that China provides. White asparagus is becoming increasingly popular. While genetically identical to the green, white asparagus is usually more tender and has a sweeter flavor. The process for growing white is the same as growing green, except the plants are covered with a thick layer of mulch. The resulting vampire spears don't photosynthesize because they are never exposed to sunlight. The special labor costs for harvesting entirely buried shoots without damaging the roots of the perennial plants tend to make white asparagus more expensive. Whether you choose green, purple, or white, remember this is an incredibly healthy vegetable for you to eat. Like many leafy greens, asparagus contains vitamin K, which aids in blood clotting and bone health. Here's a fact to remember. Just 4 spears contain 40% of the vitamin K needed for the day. They are non-fat, sodium-free, and register at only 4 calories per spear. And they also contain vitamin E, folate, vitamin C, and a little bit of tryptophan. And here is one of her recipes to deal with asparagus. I'll try to speak slowly, and maybe you can jot this down. It's for asparagus goat cheese pasta. So you need a pound of asparagus with the woody ends trimmed, 4 ounces of goat cheese, and a half a cup of frozen peas, 12 ounces of your favorite pasta, the zest of a lemon, some lemon juice, and some salt and pepper. So you preheat your oven to 425 and line a sheet pan with foil, and you lay the asparagus on the sheet pan and you drizzle it with the olive oil, salt, and pepper, and you toss it all together and spread it into a single layer. You roast the asparagus for 9 to 12 minutes or until it's tender. Then remove it and cut it up into 1-inch pieces. Now, while the asparagus is roasting, you can cook the pasta according to directions. Before draining the pasta, reserve a half a cup of the pasta water. Now drain the pasta and add it back into the pot with the frozen peas, goat cheese, lemon zest, and the roasted asparagus. Season with salt and pepper to taste and stir everything together until the goat cheese melts. Stir in some of the reserved pasta water to thin out the sauce until the desired consistency is achieved. Check the seasoning and add more black pepper if needed before serving. Yum. Some other things going on. Award-winning storyteller Jason Mellon will return to the Cotuit Center for the Arts Black Box Theater with The Flood, the second part of his bonus years series. Blending personal narrative with historical reflection, Mr. Mellon will explore the story of the drowned towns of the Quabbin Reservoir and what it means to survive when the world is upended. Each performance is a uniquely improvised, offering a different experience every night. Performances are April 24th through May 11th on Thursdays, Friday and Saturdays at 7 p.m., and Sundays at 1:30 p.m. Tickets can be reserved online. And Food Truck Festivals of America will return to Fort Taber Park for the 8th New Bedford Food Truck and Craft Beer Festival on Saturday, April 26th from noon to 5 p.m. with an exclusive VIP Beer Lovers Hour from 11 a.m. till noon. The event will feature 30 food trucks offering a wide variety of dishes from authentic Italian pizza and fresh seafood to sweet treats and more. In addition, guests will be able to enjoy a selection of local and regional craft beers and beverages. The festival will also offer a range of activities for the whole family, including lawn games, music, and an artisan market showcasing local businesses and talented crafters. General admission tickets can be purchased online and at the gate. Admission is free for ages 10 and under. Fort Taber is at 1000 South Rodney French Boulevard in New Bedford. And that's just about all the time I have for today. This is your reader Beth saying thank you for listening, and as always, thank you for your continued support of the Audible Local Ledger.